Hello everyone, my name is Deborah. Welcome to Afro Swag Media and Magazine. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Sabina. I'm going to bring her to the camera right now. Hello,
Hi, Deborah. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
No, I'm doing great. It's a great day here in Florida. So, yeah, I'm doing good.
Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you are Sabina and you were born in Zimbabwe and today you live in Florida. Can you please tell me a little bit about your background, who you are? I mean, it's freestyle, however you want to introduce yourself, that's fine with us.
Okay, wonderful. So, I am Sabina Zunguze. I am originally from Zimbabwe. I've been in the US for a very long time. I think now it's about 35 years. Um, of course, being born in Zimbabwe, I was born at a time when the country was still going through colonialism, going through the period of independence. And so I went to school in Kenya, and then I also went to school in India, and then I also went to school. I came here to the United States to do my postgraduate. I did my undergraduate in India. I did my high school in Kenya and ended up in the US. But I came to the US for my postgraduate, but I was actually employed by the Zimbabwean government when I came here. I was a statistician back then, and so I did some work with US Bureau of Census. And then I went back to Zimbabwe, got married, and then decided to come back and settle in the US. So I've been here since 1989, which has been quite a long time. Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Sabina, for that introduction. You have a very multicultural, diverse background. You travel the world,
Yeah.
India, Africa,
Yeah.
the United States of America. It's quite interesting. So you said you had an experience in Kenya and then a degree in India. Can you
Yeah.
tell me, how did that happen?
Okay, so during the time the country was going through independence, Zimbabwe, this is how I ended up in. I had a scholarship actually, um, and then that's how I ended up in Kenya to do my high school because the country was going on. You know, we had some troubled times back then. And then from there, I couldn't go back to Zimbabwe because the country was not independent then. We still had the independence still going on. This was before 1980 in Zimbabwe. So I ended up in India because I wanted to take up statistics, and I was sponsored by the Commonwealth Secretariat. So this is how I ended up in India because that was the best country that offered what I wanted to do. So
Statistics.
statistics, yes. So I ended up doing that. I was lucky enough that when I finished and had to go back to Zimbabwe, it was a time when the country was newly independent, and our university in Zimbabwe it was just starting a statistics unit. So I was involved in studying that. I was one of the senior statisticians at the Central Statistical Office. And because Zimbabwe had been closed for so long, our technology was not that at par. That's how I ended up. So I was one of the people who came here to the United States on a J visa. You know, the ones that you come, it's professional, but you are tied on to your government.
Mhm.
So when I came, I was able to, work for the U.S. Bureau of Census, so I could get experience to go back to Africa. And
Mhm.
then during that time, I was also able to do my postgraduate. So I also did my postgraduate in economic and social statistics at George Washington University in DC.
Wow.
Yeah. Went back home, was a statistician for a while in the government. I traveled a lot of countries doing that because we had to learn a lot of stuff. And then I went to the private sector. Um, I was pushed to the private sector. I guess I had some unique experiences. So, and then at that time I got married, and then my husband and myself decided that we wanted to come, to the United States. So we came here. We were in Ohio. Um, we lived in Ohio for about 12 years, I think 12, 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I also started my PhD, and I did everything right up to the end. I didn't quite present because of some circumstances that happened during that time. But I was working in the substance abuse and mental health, particularly children's mental health. So because of the work that I was doing, I just got citizenship just like that because
Wow.
yeah, I was doing something of national interest at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I did a whole lot of stuff in mental health, substance abuse. I worked at the local level, I worked at the state level in Ohio, I worked at the national level. So I was also advising other states on what we were doing. Because I was in the statistical part of it, I was doing more of the research. So
Mm-hmm.
we had information systems that we had in behavioral health that I was working on. So it was during that time that I decided I wanted to do something else with my life. I wanted to do something better with my life, and not that behavioral health was not good enough, but for some reason I thought I wanted to do something attached to Africa. I wanted to do something else, and this was back in '85. Um, so I wasn't sure what it was that I wanted to do, but after some soul searching, I then decided I really wanted to help women in Africa. This was way before, this was in '85, before, all this women's empowerment and all that stuff was in fashion. I mean, everyone is talking about it now. And then also what I wanted to do, my whole purpose for doing it was because I thought I wanted to help women economically, but I also thought at that same moment that if you want to work with you want to alleviate people from poverty, you've got to put it in a way that is more sustainable, in a way that it's not just being given. So at that point, when you talk about Africa, everyone thinks about nonprofit. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want it to be nonprofit. I wanted it to be for profit. So that's when I started my company, A Gift to Africa. That was way back in '85. Yeah. So
So, a gift to Africa. That's a very nice transition
yeah.
from your background from Zimbabwe to Kenya, India, to the US, back to Zimbabwe, working in mental health fields with children, working with almost all um, department like the state, for profit, non-profit, in research, and then now a gift to Africa.
Hmm.
You just mentioned that your passion is to help women.
Right. Right.
So is it because you were following that passion that you started a gift to Africa?
Absolutely. I can tell you that, with all the experience that I'd had internationally, nationally, locally, whatever, this was something that was so fulfilling for me. I mean, I could wake up in the morning and be so happy to be awake because for some reason, every time I would go home, I would I would see women working so hard. I would see women, have all these wonderful creations that they had, but they weren't getting anywhere. and they were not getting anything out of all of that. And as you know, I mean, when you're in Africa, you see a lot of tourists who want to buy all these beautiful African things that we have, but everyone wants to haggle for the price. You don't think about how long did it take for that woman to do, that what they have, whatever this lovely thing that you want. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, that I would go home, I would get all these wonderful things for people that I worked with. I would come back here to the United States. Everyone would wait for me wherever I was at that point in my life, and they would say, "What did you bring? We want to see what you brought." And for me, there was there was a disconnect there, thinking, there are all these people who want all these wonderful things, and yet we've got all these other makers who are making all this wonderful stuff, but they don't have a platform on
Mm-hmm.
you know on showing their product.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started, and I didn't even know what I was doing, what I was getting myself into. Remember, I was just a statistician. I
Yes.
was just a professional. I had no idea. So I thought I just went to our local. I was now at that point we were living in Salt Lake City. So I went to the local SBA in Salt Lake City, and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to help me with. I want to start a business. I want to help all these women, and I don't know where to start. I don't know, what are the laws for bringing in stuff, or importing, exporting, and how do I even get started?" I had a wonderful gentleman at the SBA who loved what he heard that I wanted to do. Um, so when I started, I had women in Kenya who were doing
Mm-hmm.
wonderful things, and but I had women everywhere. I mean, I could have started, like, I don't know, because I had seen all this, and I had written down notes that this is wonderful. How can I get? Yeah, I was just excited about doing all this. So this gentleman was really very instrumental, and he's been present in my business life for a very long time because he believed in what I was doing. So
Mm-hmm.
at that point, I think I was also lucky that I met the South African ambassador to the United States, and I had just come back from South Africa. I had gone to South Africa because when I started my business, I happened to be in South Africa for the Women's Day. They have a Women's Day in August, and I thought, what a wonderful experience! If I'm here, I can meet with all these women who come from different parts of South Africa into
Mm-hmm.
Johannesburg. So I tried to do that, and I wasn't successful because what was happening was that every time I wanted to meet a group of women, there was always somebody in between there who would say, "Hey, yes, we are doing the marketing for them, or we are doing all this other stuff,"
Mm-hmm.
and the women were not getting anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "No, that's not what I want.
Mm-hmm.
My whole goal is to go straight to the women. I don't want you in the middle," because they were getting everything and the women were not getting anything, and they would be
Oh.
working maybe 10, 12 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, when I got back from South Africa and I was in Salt Lake City, when I met with the South African ambassador, I was just invited to a luncheon that was there. And I introduced myself, and I told, it was her back then, and I told her that, "Hey, I just started my company. I want to help women in Africa. I was just in South Africa. I wasn't able to meet the women I wanted to meet." And she just, I mean, this was a big meeting, which, she had come to Salt Lake City to meet with executives for telecommunications and power and all that stuff. But she forgot all about that. Now she was concentrating on me. She said, "I am so surprised. I mean, why couldn't you, so, this is what we are trying to do in South Africa. We're trying to alleviate women from poverty. We want to support
Mm-hmm.
women. And we've got all these programs that we have just started. This is not what I want to hear." So he said, well, the ambassador, she said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, just give us your card and we'll get in touch with you." 2 weeks later, I was in South Africa.
Oh,
They
wow.
yes, they sent me back to South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, and back then they had a kind of a symposium or like a trade show. They would bring all these artisans from all over South Africa into Johannesburg, and then they would meet with international buyers. So I happened to be one of those international buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of you say what your specialty is. Mine was women. I didn't care what they were making. I just wanted to help women. um, so yeah, so that was the beginning of A Gift to Africa. And
Mm-hmm.
when I also started the company, and most people ask, why do you call it A Gift to Africa? Why not A Gift from Africa?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the significance of having it as a gift to Africa is that, I mean, there are all these wonderful gifts coming from Africa. For you to get to be involved with what I'm doing is your gift to our continent. So that was my whole big thing. And people always ask, are you a nonprofit? And are you, because of the name, I've never
Mm-hmm.
changed it. So yeah, so that was the beginning. That's when I started. I didn't mean to be involved in the actual products that they were making. I just wanted to, connect the women
Mm-hmm.
with buyers here and help them with their products before they got here. But it didn't turn out that way. I ended up having to, go to trade shows. And so I was anywhere from New York to San Francisco to Seattle, so I started with jewelry. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people who know when I started, they call me, oh, Sabina, who's got all this wonderful jewelry? It was all handmade, very high end.
Mm-hmm.
But I had more than jewelry. I had, homemade stuff,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere from, handmade, fabrics and of course the jewelry, beaded jewelry. It could be, just clay pots, something very traditional. And then
Mm-hmm.
it just exploded to, from South Africa. Then I was doing Kenya, I was doing Zimbabwe, I was doing Ghana, I was doing Morocco, I was doing.
Oh my God.
So it was just, yeah, it just went on and on and on. Yeah.
So tell me, were you able to stay for profit
Yeah.
all this time?
Yes. So I'm an LLC.
That's amazing.
Yes, I remained for profit. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's not an easy uh, type of business,
Mm-hmm.
because you are working with folks who've never, your suppliers are folks who've never been in the environment where their goods are being sold.
Right.
So you are in between cultures. You are in
Mm-hmm.
between, and then you have people here where I'm competing just on the same level as anybody in business. So they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand. I mean, I'm fair trade. I work with, with impoverished women, or even they're not. They might not be, but they're women who are back there who've never been in this environment. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of difficult. So some of the difficulties would be like, so as I said, I started with all this handmade stuff. I don't do handmade stuff anymore. I pivoted. Now I do more of the food ingredients.
Okay.
Yes. So, and the reason that was, it's not because I just left the women I was working with high and dry. No, I mean, I just moved on to other things, because
Mm-hmm.
what would happen is, my success here was actually a burden in some way or the other,
Mm-hmm.
because I would go to a very big trade show, maybe, I'm in San Francisco, or, one of those big cities, and then I get a big order. When you get a big order, and I'm talking about handmade stuff, it
Mm-hmm.
takes a while for that stuff to get here.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time the women make, and then by the time it gets here, and you only get paid after you deliver. So that
Right.
whole period could be 4 to 6 months
Mm-hmm.
before I get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really wanted the women to stand on their own 2 feet, where I would say, "Hey, somebody has ordered for $5,000 or $10,000. you are in business, we are for profit, you have to deal with it as a for profit. It didn't happen that way because I mean, it's just unfortunate. It's not their fault. It's because, anytime we made money, the women would go and build a house or, use that money for other things. It's not like it's money that's just floating in the business. They go
Mm-hmm.
and do something with it so that when we get an order,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have that kind of money. So I had to front them that money so that we could
Mm-hmm.
make the stuff before we actually get paid.
Right.
So, in the whole realm of things, and I say that I've moved to food ingredients, it's
Mm-hmm.
because food ingredients. So, I do more of the traditional kind of ingredients, and that's where I'm going. That's where I'm pivoting to,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm using really basic African ingredients that are very healthy, and then I bring them here, and then I'm making product here. So I'm more now in the food manufacturing, importing. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
more complicated, but then but then it's easier in the sense of, when, the food ingredients I'm talking about. For example, I have a fruit called the baobab.
Mm-hmm.
The baobab fruit, it doesn't cost too much when you're in Africa. Most
Right.
of the women I work with are in the villages where this baobab is found. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually process it in those villages. So getting it here is not as costly as me having all those very high-end, beautiful handmade stuff that I had.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue is, dealing with, now I deal with USDA, FDA, and
Mm-hmm.
all those other regulations. Yeah,
Yes,
but
yes, yes. Wow, that's amazing. Um, when you mention the product that you're using right now or dealing with, working with, the baobab, and I'm pretty much sure we have moringa. Tell me
I
yes.
also have moringa. Yes, some
Yes, so
of my products,
mm-hmm,
and then I'm pivoting to others. Other very African, I also have oils, body oils, very traditional, beyond just, most people know about the shea butter coming
mm-hmm,
from Africa. They know about the argan oils coming from
mm-hmm,
Africa. Southern Africa has got very basic, very high nutrition for the skin and hair.
mm-hmm.
Um, that I also have. So I have 7 other oils that other people have not heard of particularly, but I do have those. So I'm in both skincare and then the food ingredients, where I'm doing beverages and seasonings and, stuff like that. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So tell me, right now you are based in Florida.
Yes.
And the plant is in Florida?
Yes. So yeah. So I process in, for example, the baobab is in Malawi. I'm doing that in Malawi. I'm also opening a new plant in Mozambique. And then we process it, and I bring in the powder from there. So
Okay.
for the whole supply chain. So when it
Mm-hmm.
comes here, I actually process here also. So right now I'm in a commercial kitchen. I'm just going to a co-packer who will
Mm-hmm.
be doing all of that, because I'm getting ready to go into bigger stores, to supply
Mm-hmm.
the bigger stores that do all these natural, high, high nutrition products.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell me, are these products organic?
Yes, they are. I am not, because I am, I'm in a commercial kitchen right now. I'm not like certified US organic. I am USDA organic as it comes from Africa. So
Mm-hmm.
because I repackage again when it comes here, because it's repackaged in Florida here.
Mm-hmm.
I have to get another certification. But
Right.
it's all natural, all vegan, all non-GMO, all, no, nothing, no, very, very natural. And the reason I thought that was a good pivoting area to get into is because we've got all these wonderful things in Africa that we have been eating for years. People don't understand sometimes. It's like, oh, people in Africa, they don't age necessarily. Isn't that
You know, when you started telling me that, okay, so this was back in the days, and you mentioned the year, and I'm like, okay, I felt so bad. I'm like, I don't know what you've been eating. I don't know what you've been feeding yourself, but I need that secret, you know? So it is true. It is true that um, African products, I mean, all our fruit ingredients, they are so healthy,
Mm.
and they make our skin stay young, you know,
Absolutely, inside and out. So I would say,
inside and out.
inside and out.
Hmm.
I always say to people, for example, I've got this one oil called marula. I don't know whether you've
Hmm.
heard of it, the marula oil.
I've heard
And
of it.
yes, a marula oil is one of the beautiful oils we've got coming out of Africa. I mean, I've got women, it's an anti-aging oil. Nothing to it. It just comes from this. We cold press the seed from the tree. um Beautiful. Most people now know about argan oil, the Moroccan oil, and everybody raves about it, but marula is actually better than argan oil.
I'll
um,
need to go shop on your website.
Absolutely.
I really need to.
So
So that's the website right there for everyone watching. It's a gift to africa.com, and the email is info@agifttoafrica.com. Make sure you get on that website to get your marula oil, your moringa product, baobab, all the good stuff. Those
yes,
are the African secret to remain young, looking good, healthy. I mean, inside and out.
absolutely. And beyond that, you're also supporting all these women who are behind what I do. I work with more than 200 women on.
Wow.
Oh, yes. It is very satisfying. It is, I mean, the little that I'm doing makes me believe that, why couldn't more people on the diaspora do the same? Because
Mhm.
my whole feeling is that, if we don't do it for ourselves, nobody comes in with the full heart.
Right.
This is 15 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. It hasn't been easy. I could easily go into, the corporate world and get much
Mhm.
more than I am right now, but it is,
Mhm.
it is the heart that I have, and seeing those women and the trust they have in what I'm doing,
Mhm.
that, keeps me going.
Yeah.
So, that's why you find most people, just like we are saying now in the US,
Mhm.
if black people don't support black people, don't expect somebody else to come in and support you. You've got to do it within first, and then let
Mhm.
others see that you believe in your own. So
Right.
this is what I feel about, about Africa.
You know,
Yeah,
you said something very important. If we don't support each other, if we don't support our own people, who else is coming to support us? Like
absolutely.
the popular saying, we teach people how to treat us.
Yes, yes.
So when we treat ourselves well, good, and we support each other, one another in this African diaspora here in the US, then we are teaching other people, hey, we can support ourselves. Come and join us, help us, support us. So it's very important what you're saying. And to answer one of your questions, you've been asking yourself, how come and why is it that other people in the diaspora are not following your path or doing what you're doing? I'm not going to lie, I tried. I
Mhm.
tried. I haven't tried like really hard like you did,
Okay.
but like you already know and you mentioned,
Uh,
this field is very difficult.
it is.
It's tough, it's not easy. You
Mhm.
have to persevere. And when you don't have that um financial, financially, when you're not strong enough to support yourself, then you take a small break, you go back to find more capital, to come back strong.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2011, I went back to Africa to serve in the Peace Corps. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I discovered this field, working with women, working with youth association, working with artisan and the agricultures, the whole value chain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was so pumped, I was so inspired. I was like, yes, I'll come back here and help all these women with the product, handmade products,
Yeah.
agri-business, and moringa. I was very into moringa and the moringa oil, like you
Yeah.
said, and then argan oil. And
Yeah.
I came back, I'll have the women ship the item to me, and then I started going to expos, exhibitions,
Right.
but it's not easy.
It's not.
Plus,
Mm,
dealing with USDA, dealing with FDA, I mean, you have to know your stuff.
absolutely. And stick with it because sometimes, you get frustrated and you say, oh boy, because there are always easier things to do. There are
Mm-hmm.
always easier things
Mm-hmm.
to do. But
Yes.
I mean, there is no reason why I mean, even yourself. So you said you were in the Peace Corps. I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you, I said at some point in my business, I was in probably 11 countries in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those people, I mean, I got to know them through, some folks who were in the Peace Corps. For example, I
Mm-hmm.
met women in Morocco, in Marrakesh. And
Mm-hmm.
it was because there was a lady who was in the Peace Corps, and she had a group of ladies. There were about 25 of them. They were doing this wonderful embroidery that they were doing. And
Mm-hmm.
she had helped them get a grant. So they had gotten a grant and they had all these wonderful things, and she didn't know what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
how we got connected, I got connected to an aunt who saw me at some trade show somewhere and said, "Hey, I've got my my niece Susan who was
Mm-hmm.
in Morocco, and she's got all these women." So we connected, and through that connection, I worked with those women for, I think, probably 9 years, and we were doing some really brilliant stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't end up with the products that they actually had. I changed them because I know the US market. So instead of them doing Moroccan dresses or putting them on the Moroccan, nobody puts on Moroccan dresses here. So I changed what they were doing into jewelry. So it was these beautiful embroidered necklaces that they were making. People who do embroidery would look at that and say, my goodness, how long did all that take? Because
Right.
it was,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So it's about also the marketing, and also about access to capital, which is, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
that is so also so important. Yeah.
Yeah, access to capital is one
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of organizations now that help in that field, help import products from Africa here, even though accessing that market
Mm-hmm.
itself is difficult, it's
Mm-hmm.
still doable, and I really commend you on what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the beginning, I really want to know.
Okay.
So back in those days,
Uh-huh.
how were you introduced to statistics?
Oh, how was I? Oh, that's a very easy question. I just hated writing. I didn't like writing. I was good at math. And then I didn't want to be in the hard math. So that's how I ended up in statistics, because then for me, it was like all these numbers that I could apply to real world stuff. You talk about the mean, the median, all those things. So that's how I ended up in it. It was a difficult field to be in those days as a
Mhm.
girl, because I was always the only woman
Yeah.
in anywhere where I was, even at postgraduate level. I
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I was at George Washington, which is just adjacent to the World Bank. So most of my classmates were from the World Bank, who were trying to get their upper degrees, and they were all men. I was the only one, and that's when you start seeing, So the teacher would be teaching and looking at me, making sure to understand. Is she getting it? If the whole class is not understanding, you hear them saying Sabina, Sabina, so that I would act like I didn't get it, so he could repeat it.
That's quite interesting. Wow. So Today you have a gift to Africa,
Yes,
and we just posted the link to the screen. It's a gift to Africa. And then you co-founded Basa Body LLC
yes,
and then Muchero LLC. Can you please
yes.
tell us about those two?
Basa Body. So Basa Body was a coconut oil. So I opened that company because I joined up with some folks. Then I took it over, who were processing coconut oil from Mombasa in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I did that for a while. I was in Salt Lake City then, but when I moved to Florida, then I just closed it. I closed it for several reasons because coconut oil is very competitive, especially when you are competing with some oil that's coming out of countries where they don't pay people. Mine was fair trade. I couldn't compete on the price. And
Right. Mm-hmm.
also because I was processing the coconut oil remotely, I wasn't in Mombasa all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it became we couldn't keep the grade, where we could keep it as a food grade. So most of it was coming in as just for cosmetic purposes. So I closed Basa Body. It was a fun project. I loved doing it. It was going well till
Mm-hmm.
till about the time I was moving, and I thought, no, I couldn't do a gift to Africa. Then I'm doing Basa Body. And then
Mm-hmm.
Muchero means fruit in Shona, our
Okay.
language in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had started that in partnership with a friend, and that was the beginning of the food and the skincare. So we had
Mm-hmm.
started doing that together. But then we were in different states and it didn't work out well. And we were in different hard states. My partner was in Texas and I was here, and it's like two different countries, Texas
Mm-hmm.
and Florida. Are not the best. So Muchero doesn't exist, but I do have other things that I'm doing in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One of them is called She Fair. She She Fair Fair, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a company that is registered. It's registered in Zimbabwe. It's registered in Malawi. Um,
Mm-hmm.
this is a company we started for African women in Africa,
Mm, okay.
so that we could do the same thing. So for me, I'm always interested in the economics of women. Other people want to deal with the social and other things. I'm not there. Mine is economics. So I partnered with, I've got two other ladies who are back in Africa. And the reason for She Fair has not started yet. Every time we want to start, something happens, just like this pandemic.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Yeah, so She Fair is for fairs. We wanted to do trade shows for women in
Mm-hmm.
Africa so they could all meet. The reason we wanted to do that is also because, um,
So that's how you spell it, right? She first.
yes, She
Is
Fair.
it like an LLC?
It is registered. It's a private limited, so it's registered in Africa. It's not here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
private limited.
Mm-hmm.
So with She Fair, it's the whole purpose is to partner with other organizations within Africa, women's organizations,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can have shows like trade shows and events, and for women to come together. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason is that my partners in Africa, the other women I'm working with, they're also leaders in women's organizations in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And their feeling is that there are many organizations just doing the same thing. Why couldn't we bring all those together and have some kind of event where we have women talk about any kind of thing? My involvement in it is because I want to bring in women in the diaspora to also be
Right.
involved with that. So
Mm-hmm.
when we do have a fair, that's the fair, FAIR. It's
Mm-hmm.
fair, like a trade show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when we do have a fair, we would have sponsors, people who want to mentor, people who want to partner, people who want
Mm-hmm.
to do business in Africa and all that stuff. Yeah, so that's another project that I'm also involved in. And
Mm-hmm.
then I also do her African market, which is just an
Mm-hmm.
economic part of it. Again, her African market always, like, when I'm just ready to go, and then something happens, and then we go back. So I do have a website for her African market. It's there. It just says, coming up in summer, but of course it's not coming up in summer because of all that we are all going through.
What's the URL?
Her African market.
Okay, .com?
Yeah, .com.
Africanmarket.com. And yeah, what is it?
So this her African market, same thing as She Fair, but on this side of the world. So it is like a little. The way I can describe it easily is like a little eBay.
Okay.
So I would have women, uh, African women, and friends of African women. It doesn't matter, Black women, whatever. Just have their own little stores that they would be selling, but it's on one platform. But I wanted to do this for us by us. So it's not just, it's just not me doing it, but it's done by African women for themselves. No corporation, no. I mean, there are several ones that are already existing, but this is not. There's no government involved. There's no big corporation involved. If they want to support it, yes. But I wanted it to be something that is done by women, by Black women for themselves. Just by themselves.
I really love that. So we'll take a quick break, and then don't go away. If you're watching, don't go away. We'll take a quick break. I'm going to introduce you to the new Afro Swag Media and Magazine, the new edition, I'm sorry, I'm already in winter. No, the summer edition. It's almost out, and I would like to introduce you the two people that we are featuring. Don't go away, stay right here. We will be back. All right, so we have two features there. We have Dean and we have Marisa. So stay connected, and the magazine will be out on August 1st.
Oh, wonderful. So it's almost coming out.
It's almost coming up. I'm very excited about that. So right before we took that little break, we were talking about She First. We were talking about her African market. And you mentioned earlier that you employ about 200 women.
Right. So I don't employ them. I work with them. So
you collaborate with them.
Yes. Yeah. So there are those who work for me. There are those who work beside me. There are those who work, they just want to learn what I'm doing. So there's all kinds of collaborations that we do together. The others who got their own little thing, they just want to come and get involved. For example, when we are doing like the baobab is very seasonal. So it will just be at that point they want to get involved. There are others who want training. So I also do training. I also do, a lot of consulting. As far as working with women in Africa and with the women themselves. So yeah. So I work with a whole lot. I can't. So I always say about 200 because it's plus or minus.
Yeah. That's a very good number right there. And once again, congratulations. We're proud of you, the work that you're doing, and the focus on Africa, African women. I mean, that's very commendable from your background, not liking to write, and then you pursue your statistics, and now back to, the motherland. Helping women all these years, despite how difficult it is to access that market. You persevere. And now tell me, how are you collaborating with the diaspora here in the US?
Here, I just I'm not very, I mean, I'm not quite in any of the organized groups as such, as far as, like meeting, going to meet with other people as far as that is concerned, but virtually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, yeah, so I follow like the Diaspora Network, the one that is out of California. I try to market to our own people on things that I'm bringing, and I'm doing this online. I don't live where there are many of our folk here where I am right now, but I let people know, how it is nowadays with technology. You target, people that you feel like you want them to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot about working with women in Africa. So
Right.
I'm involved with, like speaking with Rotary clubs, with different on different stages, and I talk about, how to work with different cultures as such, because I think what has made me where I am right now is because, I work with people that I understand where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about because you lived in Africa for 2 years, so now you're an expert in Africa. It's not about that. It's
Mm-hmm.
more than that. There are many things in Africa. It doesn't matter whether you are from South Africa or from Nigeria or from Ghana. There are many things that you and I can sit down and talk, and there's so many things we don't say, but we understand. I understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
um, there are many things that we do that we just understand, which are not the standard business etiquette that everybody wants to say. It's not what you would expect, but that's how we work. And we've
Right.
worked that way. So I talk about those kind of things when I'm on stages like that. So I do talk about Africa a lot. I was involved when I was in Salt Lake City, for example. We had just started the African Chamber of Commerce. I was the president for that. So I was involved a lot with the Department of Trade on things that we were doing for the African continent. I was also a member of the international for the Women in International Trade. That's another organization, and focused really on Africa. How can we get more and more people know about what is on the continent and what is
Mm-hmm.
what is available on the continent and how you can help. I always get people who say, "Oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. How can I help? How can I get in touch?" And I'm very open about talking to anybody who wants to hear what I have to say about the experience that I've
Mm-hmm.
gone through, and how you can just enter the African market without you just getting information from the book, because it's
Mm-hmm.
more complicated than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Mm.
amazing. So you mentioned the African Chamber of Commerce from Salt Lake City?
Yes, so we had one of those. Somehow we all kind of moved, so I'm not sure, I mean, the people were very active in it, moved out of the city, but we were very, very active in what we were doing. So anybody from Africa who would come to Salt Lake City, I mean, we would meet with them and make sure that the governor knows that the person is there, and we would do programming that that person was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was very connected with that. Yeah.
Wow. And does that still exist?
I don't think so, because
Okay.
most of the people who were the leadership uh, kind of moved positions or moved out of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as active as it was when we were doing it. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I don't know if anyone watching right now has any questions for Sabina. Please feel free to ask questions. I'm trying to navigate through all the groups that I'm sharing this in on Facebook and YouTube to see if we have any questions. Please don't hesitate to ask questions or put comment out there. I'll try to keep on monitoring. And then once I see any questions, I will make sure we address it before we go. So, Sabina, you also mentioned that you are part of the women, African Women International Trade.
Women, it's called Organization of Women in International Trade. They
Okay.
Yeah, so this is an organization that it's worldwide. There's
Mm-hmm.
now there are chapters in Africa for that. Nairobi has one, Nigeria has one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
South Africa has one, but it's where women who are all trading internationally
Mm-hmm.
are part of it. It's a great group for anyone who um, who wants to know about navigating the international world.
Mm-hmm.
But
Wow.
yeah,
Is it like membership based? Is
yes,
it okay?
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
It is. It's membership based,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have programming. Then they had their first conference that I know of here in Florida in Tampa last year, 2018.
And I
But
know you and I we were supposed to meet in Chicago.
yes,
This it was in spring, in March,
yes,
at a conference, but unfortunately due to the COVID-19, it got postponed to later and canceled.
yeah.
So
Fortunately,
yeah. I wanted to bring you to this stage so that you can share your knowledge. And like you said, you are in consulting, you help other people interested in um, being involved in this field. So if you are watching and you have questions, like we said, this field and accessing this market is not easy, but Sabina has a lot of experience in this field. She was perseverant and she tried, and now she is helping a lot of women in Africa and here in the US. She's changing lives. So, thank you
okay.
so much for what you're doing. I've got people connect right now from all over, from Senegal, from Chicago,
Thank
from
you.
Omaha, Nebraska, Florida, and I think I have California. I have Chike Mwofia just
Uh,
connected. Thank you for watching, everyone. So, Sabina,
yeah.
anything you would like to add? Any comments?
Yes, I just wanted to add the fact that two things. One is that the pandemic in Africa has been very difficult um, for everyone. Not only the pandemic by itself. I'm sure we have not heard of too many cases like it is happening here in the United States. But what
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic has done is raise a lot of poverty because of lockdowns. Most
Right.
countries went into lockdowns. Now with
Mm-hmm.
women, a lot of women do touch work. They sell stuff. They're in trade. They're going up and down. So if they're out of the home, doing something or the other for the family. So they
Mm-hmm.
weren't able to do that. So poverty is going to be something that is very rampant in Africa because of the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, whatever you can do to help. I mean, it's been very difficult. It'll be really wonderful. I'm sure people from Africa know that maybe your family is not doing as well as they were doing. I know we probably are not doing as well as we're supposed to be doing, but they are in really big trouble over there. And then the
Yes.
second thing I just want to mention is the fact that I mean, if anyone wants to be in touch with me, I'm you can get in touch with me through the website, or I'm always open to talk to people, those who want to start their businesses or want to know about Africa. It's not always about money for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how we can give our continent a chance. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're right with the COVID-19.
Yeah.
Um, it's affecting people everywhere, whether it's in the US, in Africa, and especially women. So,
Mhm.
this is a call to everybody to help. If you can help, yes, help. And if you want to reach out to Sabina, her information is showing on the screen. Email her. She is open to helping people. She is open to answering any questions that you may have.
Okay.
And don't forget to go to agifttoafrica.com. You've got to get all her products. And I'm going there right now to get the, is it marula oil?
There's marula oil, there's
Mm-hmm.
mongongo oil, there's baobab oil and moringa
Mm-hmm.
oil and all
Yes.
kinds of oils that are there. Plus,
Those are good
ingredients.
stuff. She's
Those are
favorite.
wonderful for your skin.
Yes.
Very natural.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
know the sauce. It's not like you're buying it out of a big store where they've mixed with other things.
Exactly. And I mean, you've been watching from the beginning, and she said she started this thing long time ago. But
Absolutely.
look at her skin. Look at her skin. That's the that's the proof that this thing works. It's organic, it's natural,
Yeah.
and it's processed in Africa. She has some processing going on here in Florida, but this is the real good stuff that you want, that you need.
Mhm.
And we want to empower each other. We want to
Mhm.
support one another. Like I said at the beginning, we teach people, we show people how to treat us. So when we love each other, when we support one another in this African diaspora, we are teaching others how to treat us, how to support us. Go to agifttoafrica.com and get your product right now. We have everything for everyone.
Yes,
You'll find yourself
absolutely.
when you go there. Sabina, it has been an honor. Thank you so
Oh,
much
thank
for
you.
being on the show and for
Thank
allowing us to discuss and chat with you a little bit.
you.
Hopefully, I'll be able to see you in person. Who
Yes.
knows? Um,
Right.
yeah, definitely. We hope this COVID-19 and the pandemic go away. And until next, this was Afro Swag Media and Magazine. It's the ethnic wave. Let's engage, narrate, and empower. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.